We'll continue. Cool. So this is episode 5. I'm going to have to stop saying the number because I'm going to start messing it up if I make that a habit. Eventually there's going to be like 3 episode 5s or something.
Yeah.
So I'm pretty good at keeping track of it now, but eventually I'm just going to have to say, I need an intro. I don't even know if I want intro music. Maybe. It is cool though.
Yeah.
When you listen to
Don't buy a stock track.
Yeah. When you listen to podcasts, doesn't like the intro music kind of do something to you when you hear it, or no?
Yeah, sometimes it like devalues the whole thing. Like there's a couple that I can tell just bought stock music. Like they browse for 60 minutes on like a stock music website and pick some track that they thought sounded, like hard thinking, like, oh, this is a podcast really for thinkers, or this is a podcast for people who are goofing off. And it just sounds like shit because it's just, sort of banal radio music or something, but with no singing.
Yes. Yeah.
But sometimes it gets you hyped. I mean, for sure you get the cue, like a jingle, right? So you want to have that so that everybody knows, like, oh shit, time to turn on my funny bone. Mike Turpin's here.
Right.
That sort of
Joe Rogan's is pretty iconic, and you have like, that's just a cool little riff, drums. It's like, and it transitions from the ads. When you have ads at the top, it's cool to like hit the button and now it's go time. And it's not as much of like a distinct cold opening. Like, it's so obvious for the guest. I listened to Tiger Belly. If you've never heard Tiger Belly, do you know who Bobby Lee is, the Asian comedian?
Like I know who of them, but no, I don't know any of the comedy.
Yeah, he doesn't even have like a special, but he's I guess he definitely would be somewhat of like a Zach Galifianakis, sort of quirky and like just kind of anything goes. And he has just like such an ornery, playful sense of humor. It's endearing and it's absolutely hysterical. Like, you would die laughing listening to Tiger Belly.
Nice.
And they have a really alternative. I'd say their fan base is probably somewhat hipstery, but it's still accessible to like that Rogan sort of circle, if that makes sense.
Right. So that, maybe you have more information on this. We were actually discussing this last night. What is like a hipster now? Like what is the aesthetic affect of a hipster now? Because I think my wife was misdiagnosing someone who I think is definitely a hipster, but they didn't look like the hipster of the millennial generation. They were like the Z hipster. And it was like a throwback to sort of 90s hip hop a little bit, like bad tattoos. And I don't mean bad. I mean bad in a
no, you're right though.
Sense.
Yeah, no, you're totally right, because when I think of hipster that like you or I would get along with, like kind of like us, but in hipster form, I think of like my ex Steph, and she had those sort of like almost, what are they called? I don't know if she didn't have Sailor Jerry tattoos, but she had that like the
traditional
point.
Yeah, traditional tattoos and poppers, like stuff that you picked out of a book.
Exactly.
And you went with, and you got this whole montage of poppers. And yeah, I've known a lot of people like that, and they get really into it, and they go to these really expensive shops even to get them, even though they're not technically demanding tattoos, but it can be a cool aesthetic. But yeah,
a slice of pizza, the number 13, like an alien or a UFO.
Yeah, some call back to like maybe like a suicide or anxiety or mental health thing was sort of coming in at the end of that. Some symbol.
Simpsons character
shows solidarity.
Yeah. And okay, so when I think of hipster, I think musically they're going to project that they're into some sort of like sophisticated indie rock or something that's like a little bit rougher, but emotional and emotionally sensitive. But then they also secretly either love like bad rap music or like Justin Bieber. They love pop icons in their day. Like, they know all the words to some brand of pop music in an ironic sense. So they ironically like some sort of pop culture. That is
so it's that's true. It is almost like, in its essence, it is sort of like an ironic runaround from just being, one of the sheep, one of the masses who's like pop culture. It's like, no, I'm not that kind of person who likes pop culture. I think it's all bullshit. It's all I consume, but I approach it from the sarcastic, detached, cynical way. So
right.
it's not the same. I'm not just one of these Americans like consuming the thing. It's like a wall. It's a defensive mechanism in some ways, because everybody I've known as a hipster is really in the top 40.
Yes. I 100%, because it's almost like the purest of the arts that seem like the outer shell of hipster. If you're all in on indie rock or punk, you're typically not hipstery. If you don't secretly like bad reality TV, or that irony is a big part of it, man. Like if you take a lot of like your type of beard is not the type, like hipsters there'd have to be a slice of irony in almost everything. Thrift stores, and looking for like something that is bad but good, that they think they can pull off with confidence, because it gives them like a confidence. So they wear it confidently. It's stuff that you or I could not typically wear. And then they gravitate towards an era usually. Like, I don't want to just talk about Steph. God, if she listens to this, she's going to feel bad, because I mean, hell, I dated her and I admired that about her. It wasn't bad, but she did listen to the bad rap. She really liked things like Dolly Parton, and not that Dolly Parton's bad, right? But it was like odd for this person who's into like, folk punk and all this to also really, really be into stuff. And let's even, like, when I think of comedic hipsters, they probably have a mustache that they make jokes about, or something like that. They wear like, maybe, typically guys would probably wear some sort of effeminate jeans, skinny jeans. It's hard to imagine a heavy hipster. They exist, but a lot of them are a bit more like frail and like fragile looking. And if they're heavy, they're probably more like awkward and like weird, like hunched posture, and kind of like picking at their shirt or something. You know what I mean?
Well, you got to figure there's at least some people who are not really hip. They don't actually have ironic detachment to pop culture, and sort of an outer shell and inner shell. And that's like a cultural trend, not like a demonization of anybody in particular, but there's got to be other people who are also just want to fit into that crowd because, somebody's hot, or it's just like the cool kids or whatever. And they are then forced to have to approach hipsterism as a fashion that they can sort of discreetly decode and figure out the elements of, buy the pieces of it, and start wearing it around, And so it sucks for them the most, probably, because they don't want to wear like what, they probably don't care. They would just walk around in sweatpants or something.
Yeah. One more thing that is actually about my ex, just because I can't help it. Like that was my time of really infiltrating the hipster community. And she's the one that I remember the most, but like, here's a good example. And this is definitely likened to hipsters. They will take great offense when you are like non-ironic, but offensive. But if you're ironic about it and like, my sense of humor actually works for hipsters. Usually they don't find offense when I make comments. Like on the last episode, I was making jokes that are a bit racy, no pun intended. I have an edgy sense of humor that falls in line with maybe the type of racial jokes or things that Zach Galifianakis, or like a lighthearted, absurd, silly, whether it's based off of a pun or it's so over the top that it's so clear you don't actually have this hatred. But at the same time, if somebody says Oriental, like her father said Oriental, referring to it was like a dude, like, you do not say, it was like a 10-minute dinner conversation of being offended by her father saying Oriental, and her dad couldn't wrap his head around it. He's fucking
he couldn't quite. No,
he's not. I mean, he's not. He's his type of racist. He's not no more racist than anybody that's like him, and he doesn't actually have like he's totally cool, but at the same time he doesn't get how saying something like Oriental is offensive, and he'll fight tooth and nail to be like that. I'm not being racist. You call people who are Chinese, Japanese, whatever, Oriental. You just do it,
right?
Yeah, right. So when it's out of ignorance, they spew venom. But if you know better and you do it, because like, do you know the podcast you probably don't know this, but Come Town, Nick Mullen and Stavros Halkias are the perfect example. And they use things like gay and fag, ironically, right? And hipsters love it. They rarely take offense to this sort of joking. Maybe they're a little bit afraid to do it themselves, but but they love that these guys who are not stereotypically homophobic, or really probably not homophobic outside of the fact that they just want to ironically call everyone gay, and they get a free pass because they fit their mold, right? Like they're the alphas of the hipsters who get to say and be that way, but don't really mean it. And it's just being funny.
Well, there was definitely a movement in like woke politics to try and call out all those people.
Yeah,
you're right. I mean, there was a pretty serious moment where the ironic, there was articles, and I remember when this originally started coming out, because it originally appeared in like radical politics and anarchist circles. You would see this sort of thread of these blog posts trying to take down ironic comedy, or your joke's still racist kind of articles, and it just seemed to not go, because there's a cultural elitism to hipsters too, that like the people you're talking about come down, like everybody's listening to it. Nobody wants it to go away,
right?
Secretly, but we don't want to talk about it. It's like people don't talk about things like Pornhub or all these sort of things. They just get a pass. They're not up for interrogation. But what you're saying about calling people out who are just not cued in to the new symbolic structure of offense, then that is really pretty despicable, to be just like, well, we don't care about your intentions. We're not interested in interrogating this guy's intentions using Oriental. We already know he's a bad person because he's already cued us in by these symbols that he's using, that he's a piece of shit.
Yeah. And you know what, though, you actually touched on something that if you're going to define the hipster of today, like the under 27 hipster, under 26, they probably don't find things like Come Town quite as funny, unless they are not like, a lot of hipsters are probably a bit more social justice warrior, like, very outspokenly, you're not allowed to say any of these things. Nobody gets a pass. It's not cool. Blackface isn't cool, whether it's Always Sunny or some fucking racist person, right? Nobody gets a free pass for the most part. I'd say with the most up-to-date hipster. Probably. And I think we've probably are at like a peak of that. And I imagine it'll start to go back to like having some sort of ironic reflection of the way people just were or something. I don't really know. I will say this. You mentioned Pornhub. Something I noticed when I talked to, like, I was hanging out with a girl who was, well, it was a year ago or so, maybe a year and a half ago, and she was 24. And her friend was maybe a year or two younger than her. And they were awesome, dude. Like if I was younger, they would have been like my typical MO, like kind of gothy, pretty smart, into kind of music that I thought was cool, had good senses of humor, but they were way more sensitive and way more scared than even like the era of hipster that I dated, right? And it was more extreme, and something that seemed to be a trend among their friends and them was just an insane reflection of the extreme porn that you saw trending. Like they were much more into like daddy stuff and weird power dynamics. And basically, you know, you hung around them and you started to wonder, Jesus, did every girl get raped by some like male in their family or in their you know, maybe not blood relative, but maybe like a drunk uncle by marriage? Did he, like, it almost just seemed like everyone was such a victim. It made me wonder, like, you know, it was pretty weird because it didn't just seem like them. It seemed like all of their friends had like an extreme, in the hipster circle, had an extreme history of abuse. There was extreme feminism, you know, like you wouldn't even be able to tell them that you thought it was a little weird, say, if a girl had armpit hair, which I get thinking like you're shallow for thinking that, right? But then again, like, you know, somebody should be able to say what they find physically attractive. Like I can say, right, I prefer a bigger butt to a smaller butt, right? You should be able to say, well, I would prefer a shaved armpit. It's you know, whatever, right? I would think right, that yeah, maybe if somebody doesn't shave their armpits and they're in earshot, they're going to be a little like, you know, they don't want to hear that. Okay, I'm not trying to offend anybody, right? That's just a random example, but they were very, just so easily triggered, dude. And then they were like, fuck cops, fuck fascists, fuck racists. You know, it was to the, you know, Trump, cops, and fascists were like a big, the pillars of you hate these people. And it seemed like that kind of transcended into hipster culture. When you look on Tinder, that's when I saw like kind of hipstery people on Tinder. And like when you have your age range a little bit lower, you start to see, and that like every alternative seeming person listed their pronouns, no Trump supporters, no cops. And then, as if people know they're a fascist when they're a fascist, no fascists. That's like, who is a self-identifying fascist?
Well, it's interesting because like, yeah, well, right. And what does anybody mean by fascism?
I don't know.
It's like interesting. We live in a time where we talk about fascism more than ever before, but we don't talk about totalitarianism ever. It's like, it's, well, you know, fascism is a particular type of governance that came out of, that's the part of the total state. And then, but it's easier to sort of pivot. For instance, it's like, you know, fuck cops, which, you know, I'm generally closer to, but then it's not like fuck the big cops. It's not like fuck the CIA or fuck the NSA or like fuck these bureaucratic institutions that actually dominate all of our lives on a day-to-day basis of how we behave. It's like, no, like fuck that one guy over there, or like this guy I saw on TV, he's fucking fascist, he's the real problem. So it becomes, in essence, when they're forced to actually identify the problem, it ends up being the problem is just rednecks. You know, the political problem of our era is uninformed masses of deplorable people who we, for some reason, are like everything else is a product of the totality in the system. Every of their problems, of everybody else's problems that we put into the correct category, well, they, you know, their problems are from the system. But all these rednecks and all these other, no, they're not. They are the problem. They are holding the original sin of evil and racism. They haven't transcended this thing and come up to the new values. And the funny part about it is it all kind of hinges on believing that there's this progress in human values, that human beings are somehow changing over the course of these industrial generations and becoming like perfect human beings. And if it wasn't just for these laggardly assholes who, you know, want to make America great again, who call back to the past, right? Like that's sort of her heretical thing anyway, to say like, you want to go back at all, right? That there might be something in the past of value. Yeah, I guess that did get put into hipster culture. But I removed myself from it around that time. So I don't know how like accurate or how much people really believed it. As an example, back when I was more around, you know, the scene of punks and alternative radical politics or whatever, people, like everybody was fucking vegan. Everybody was vegan. until they were outside of the convention center or whatever, and they went to McDonald's and drank a Coke and ate some chicken nuggets. So there wasn't this actual strong core of conviction. There was just a strong cultural conformity that was going on. And unfortunately, like the leftism from the 60s just enforced that social conformity sort of outlook, where now we have a society of total conformists, and it's really disappointing. But you're describing the rebellious youth with some really key predictable descriptions, which means they're all conforming to falling into the line, right? Give your pronouns, do these things, as if that is some sort of key to liberation. Now, nobody really understands if it is. They're just kind of, that's one of the key mysteries to me in our modern world. It's like, well, why do people think these things besides propaganda or something? Because there's no evidence for any of this shit, but it keeps going on. But what you started with Pornhub, and I think you were kind of getting at with these people, this sort of like what would be perceived as maybe a few generations ago as like sexual perversion being the dominant sexual mode in a certain generation. Well, yeah, I mean, is it from porn? I mean, have you seen these videos of like the high school students getting suspended for playing the Pornhub theme song?
No.
There's these huge compilations. It happens all the time. And like people will be at the drum concert, right? And they'll do the little drum ditty from Pornhub. And all the whole auditorium will be like, oh my God, laughing and freaking out. So from a very young age, people are tuned into this.
Yeah.
I mean, and they can consume it on advanced networks. I mean, we at least had buffering issues sometimes, or whatever. It was like an actual technological limit to how much pornography you could consume. Now, I mean, it's all the time. I'm sure it's during class, people are just watching porn.
Well, and I think we're finally at a time where it's so accessible that at the same time, the most common porn out there is in a somewhat, what I would say, extreme perversion. Like when we were younger, we knew that there was like weird kinky shit, like people who thought balloons popping were sexual, right? And we had things like HBO's Real Sex, and we knew that there was stuff. And yeah, maybe in like the people who were actually really into porn, they knew about like that Taboo series that came out where like it was I think a mother and a son or whatever. But now, literally, good luck finding like a page of videos that isn't all based around parent and kid sort of relationships or brother and sister. And what is that going to do to a 12-year-old who just stumbles upon that? I mean, you can't tell me that is not going to affect the mind of youth. And we haven't seen the repercussions of it yet. But I mean, if a brother and sister are watching brother and sister porn and they're young enough where they're still getting values instilled in them, what do you think that's going to do?
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's like the classic case of information control, where obviously we need some.
Yeah.
We cannot be just exposing people to this total myriad of because it's not just values, it's sort of programming sexual desire, and how you relate through the world. I mean, I think it's probably one of the more damaging things, but it's not up for debate. Yeah. That's not going to ever be one of the hipster calling cards.
I know. And
like, it's so not going to be like my pronouns or whatever, anti-fash, shut down Pornhub. That's never going to be like the third identification.
It's so backwards, dude. Okay. It's so backwards that somebody's going to get so bent out of shape about A, but be totally, it's so contradictory to me. And the porn thing, it is something that it really boggles my mind how people of a young age somewhat accept this brother, sister, parent, kid fantasy thing as, I mean, they live it out. I know a dude who was a porn star, and that was the gimmick kind of. And he dated younger girls who were like, he always would say 19 was his favorite age. I mean, he was, he's got a deviant side to him. I just knew him. I mean, I like the guy, but it's like, clearly there's some demons or something going on. And he would date these younger girls and they like called him daddy. And he would go, and he would say they all had daddy issues or whatever, but they were like living out the fantasies of whatever videos he was putting out. And it was weird because he was, I guess he's like around, he's around 40 and dating 19-year-olds,
I don't know what the history of the trend is. Like when did step sibling, that's usually like the thing that is popping up, or step mom or something like that, right? Because they try
certain websites they banned. So like his big thing was not using step siblings, as a lot of them were when it first became big. And then I think Pornhub put their foot down and said, we won't promote videos that don't make it a step member thing. So there has been a little bit of censorship in some of the main channels, but it still exists. And for a while it was prominent to not use step siblings.
It's interesting because you have like the sibling taboo in our culture. And so you can see that we've chiseled all the way down on that, right? It's only the very core of that is still standing or changing how people are doing things. But I don't know like when it started, what year, but it really is interesting to me that it intersects with like COVID and lockdowns and this huge portion of the population staying home, even now, right? And and that's what they're seeing. They're seeing it not just because that's what the porn companies are making and putting it out there, but also because they're searching for it or they're going for it too. I mean, it's a feedback mechanism, right? I mean, it's probably making it worse, but there is something out there that's creating this content, because we know that porn companies will shift on a dime. Like they're going to make the videos that people want to see. They've been doing it forever. Like they're really good at it. They make lots of money, and they make the most money that nobody will ever look at or talk about. I mean, it's great for them. Nobody's ever talking about, we need to go after them. There was that thing with Pornhub and underage content. Was that last year, I think, that they had to kind of come down and started giving people blue check marks, like confirming people, which is interesting because now it sort of legitimizes certain people, and who knows how much they're looking at things. But now if you have the blue check mark, the person this seems kind of fucked up, but I mean, they're authenticated. So I guess it's okay. It's probably okay. And especially if you're really young and you don't understand very much and you see a blue check saying, oh, okay, well, that means everything's good here. It's pretty insidious, honestly, the whole industry. But the step sibling thing is, it's beyond me. I should probably look at when it started, because maybe there's no correlation to the lockdown.
I want to say, now I just started here. Oh no. Okay. We're good. I want to say it started probably 5 or 6 years ago, but now it gives us an opportunity I keep thinking, when is it going to have been out long enough where people will have acted upon it long enough, where there is data and a huge shift in parents and stuff to acknowledge it, because it's not talked about at all. And there's going to come a time where people are like, hey, our kids are fucking. Like I don't know the numbers on this stuff. After this, I do want to give you a somewhat formal introduction, but once we're done this topic, but I love guesstimating. So like, I'm going to ask you some weird numbers and you're just going to give me a percentage, or what do you think the likelihood? Okay. What do you think the likelihood of a brother and sister, say, let's start with step sibling, or give me step sibling and non-step sibling. So blood and step, say within the age of 3 to 5 years of each other, or less, right? what do you think there's a chance that they've crossed the line and done some weird sexual stuff? It doesn't need to be full intercourse, but maybe they've kissed, whatever. I don't know what they've done. Something that crosses a clear line. What percentage?
I don't know, 10%.
Yeah.
I would say it's probably not. I mean, if we're not talking about ideation or like thinking about it, because I guess most like Freudian psychologists would have said that they were all doing it in their heads.
In their
right?
heads.
They were having some sexual fantasy.
God.
If it was that close, because you would have, this early archetype. But of actual, I don't know. And you know what? The data that you would get if you researched it might be total shit.
That's the thing. I always think about that.
Who is gonna confirm it in a poll? Under what conditions would you?
Exactly.
Maybe in a decade, when maybe there's a normalization trend, and in a decade you can get some better info. But I still think it's too early. I think people are not going to answer that question.
I think that
honestly.
you're going to notice things like an obvious increase, but I think the number is never going to be accurate.
Right. The number's never going to be accurate. I mean, whether it could be how you ask the question, these are all things that would change the number. Whether it would even be accurate on its own account is one thing, but it would also change too. I think you could look at some cohorts and you could say, all right, what about, because people get married and divorced like crazy now. I mean, it's not an uncommon thing to be married a few times, right? So what if you get married to your third, you're on your third spouse, and your kids are between 15 and 19, and you both have a between 15 and 19-year-old, and you move in to the same house, and now you have step siblings, and they don't know each other. They don't have a personal history before then. You'd have to think that it would be a very high probability. Because we all know that proximity and all these things drive like a lot of romantic and sexual encounters. It's just the way it is. If there's no opportunity, then it's unlikely to happen. But if there is, it takes a whole lot less,
Yeah. No, I think that I definitely, I'll tell you a funny story, man. My dad, his current wife, they started dating. Well, they were high school sweethearts, but they started dating again. I don't know. I'm just going to throw out the number 6 years ago. Maybe it's been more. It's probably been about 6 years. At least 5 years ago, they started dating again and eventually got married. And when he started dating her, he kept telling me, "Hey, bud, Joyce's daughter, Megan, she's a sweet girl and all that." And I'm like, "Dad, she's going to be my stepsister. Like, you don't realize that that's weird?" And he goes, "Oh, well, whatever. You're both around the same age. They were trying to hook me up with her daughter, and neither of them thought that was weird." And no.
It's almost like we don't really take marriage and family that seriously. I mean, in a lot of respects, especially when your kids have grown. I know there's a lot of adults who get divorced. And so it's like, I don't know, it's like we're just a sea of individuals, and it just happened. Look, you guys know each other. It's a first step,
Yeah.
Wouldn't that be cool? You guys are already on a good path for a happy sexual encounter. Yeah. I don't think people really take it that seriously. I mean, and maybe part of that is what we were talking about before, but maybe it's deeper than that. Maybe it's more about the collapse of family in general.
Yeah. I think that, I think when you're on your third marriage, like my father, it gets a little bit less of a big deal.
Yeah, right.
No,
it's not like he's going to have kids with her and then you're going to be with his daughter, and then it's going to be like he knows that's and
there have been long-term relationships that he didn't get married to. Yeah, it's the way I framed it was, and this is a good question. It's like, do you know anybody who has dated their step sibling? Off the top of your head, no, right?
Not off the top of my head.
Well, I don't want to be that person.
When you said that, I started to think that I have heard, but I also have like a big family. Maybe there was something somewhere, you know.
Yeah,
but
and
no,
I'm
not
I'm
off the
talking
top of
about
my head.
serious.
I don't have any names.
Like
Serious.
could potentially like marry their step sibling. Because this is
Well,
I don't want that to be the talking point. Because if I married my stepsister, maybe not you, but most people, when they get done, when I meet people and I leave the room, you know what they're going to say? That guy's married to his stepsister.
And think of the gift you'll have given them.
My popularity would just go way
in
up.
Conversation. Did you invite the steps over? You did? Yes. I wanted to talk shit about them all night.
All right. I'm going to ask the more serious thing. And I think 10% is probably a good, at the very, I would say anywhere from 8% to like 20%. And then you have to consider the fact that even if you weren't related, there's not like a 100% chance that you would do something with them. So I would say that it's actually only about anywhere from a third to a half likely, or a quarter to a half likely
of the
possibility, if that makes sense, because you're not just going to do stuff with anybody. I guess, well, I will say this on it before I ask you this question. I remember, see, I don't have a sister. I don't have like the stereotypical mom who flaunts her body. I remember, do you remember the guy? I won't say his last name, but do you remember the guy we went to school with, who I was friends with, who you could tell was like a good guy, but he also was like, had issues and like a bully? Brandon, does that name ring a bell? Blonde hair, basketball, tall.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
I was realizing when you were talking to Claire that I was like, I don't
remember Claire. There's a guy we went to school with whose mom was just obviously hot, and she'd like walk around the house in like lingerie.
Okay, you've told me this before.
Yeah, and
okay.
It was odd, and the guy has issues. The guy, I mean, that's where like he definitely proves Freud right. It's Freud, right? that Oedipus complex. Is that what it is?
Yeah.
Oedipus,
edible complex. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So, I mean, it was weird, dude. So I don't have that. Even like my cousins, I didn't from the time. I mean, I have a cousin, Shelly, first cousin, the only female first cousin I have. And I do have like maybe a second cousin named Ashley, but I only grew up around them so much. We had to travel to see them. And then the one cousin, Shelly, I didn't see for a long period of time. And it's not like she was like the stereotypical hot girl. She's great. She's not unattractive. I'm just saying, like, I didn't have anybody that was like tempting me to sexualize, you know? So, but I could imagine that it was tough for Brandon not to sexualize his mom. When we were looking at scramble porn, you know,
right.
When we didn't have, and everybody told him, dude, your mom's so hot. And I don't know. I mean, it just, but I do have a story. I'll tell you, growing up, I thought that I had cousins that were not cousins, you know, like when your parents have good friends and they see this is your aunt and uncle, and then these are their kids. Now they had daughters, Megan and Amber, who I recognized at the time as being very attractive. I didn't fantasize about them, but I mean, I knew that they were hot. And I remember thinking at a young age, like, is this supposed to be weird? Is it wrong to think they're hot? Like, but I also at the time knew that we weren't really blood related, but I didn't really get why I called them my cousin, you know? It was a weird thing, but I never really had like extreme temptation, but so it's always seemed weird to me. And this porn phenomenon is one of the weirdest things about our culture to me. If I could pick one thing, if I was in college and you need to do a thesis statement or something in like a sociology class, boom, I'm picking that.
Porn. Yeah.
It's so bizarre to me. And it's bizarre on so many levels. It's bizarre to me that the modern day hipster feminist wants you to dominate them and, you know, choke them unconscious and make them gag and like like abuse the hell out of them, and they need to live out these things that may or may not have been done to them. Or maybe it's one of those things where they want to be victimized, because there's a lot of that in hipster culture too. People who weren't actually victims that like want to stand up and be that person that is a minority or a what do you call it? Disenfranchised? I don't know the right word, but they've had some sort of extreme oppression or issues to deal with.
Yeah.
And that's a big thing in hipster culture. We've seen that a little bit. One of my best friends growing up, who you know, and I don't want to call her out because again, there's no need for that. But she kind of got into this, like the world is out to get me. But as far as we know, she had a great upbringing. And she became this thing of like, you know, really looking into that, like being an oppressed person. And she's somewhat of a hipster, I guess.
Yeah, right. I think that you know, you start to see problems in the world, you know, it all starts to seem so bleak, you know, all of the myriad issues, you know, you start to pay attention to a few things. And then you start to also see that the attention is going towards these things. And there's a subconscious thing, I think, mostly. I don't think there's a lot of malicious people trying to invent themselves as a victim. But I do think there are a lot of people who end up doing that. And they do that because I think they feel like they'll get the attention. And then unfortunately, it derails all the seriousness that they might have been able to bring to the table. Yeah, and I don't know.
Yeah. I'll tell you another funny, and this is why I hate the venom. Okay. This is why I hate, like, I love that everybody has their cause. And if you want to stand up for, you know, whether it's a social justice sort of thing through maybe the lens of like veganism, or even if it's just animal rights and you're not a vegan, or whatever you're into, the fact that it's hard to throw venom is because you're the same person that flicks your cigarette butt in the street. You're the same person that does not do every single thing. Like, you don't care that you're buying this product that tears up animals with tractors in order.
Oh yeah, we don't talk about sweatshops and consumerism, and I mean, that whole dialogue that peaked in the late 90s really is dead. We don't talk about any big systemic change into how we relate to the world on a daily basis. It's not up for debate. It's the only thing we can talk is about how to better include and assimilate people into this homogenous mass that's, you know, taken over, I think, most of the world at this point. I mean, look at how things are governed in different countries. It's all basically the same schematic. So and then of course that will erase the cultural stuff, and the cultural stuff is what we're talking about with the porn, where there's no backdrop. We don't teach kids a virtuous way to deal with sexuality. You know, we tell them, instead we appeal to this sort of like blunt so-called reality that, like, if you have sex with a family member, you're going to have a disabled child, right? There's this sort of taboo mythology out there it's the ultimate backdrop to that sort of taboo. But as that's basically the only appeal that's sort of left. We don't have any other guiding principles as a culture, certainly not unified ones. And then you look at the places that are trying to come up and compensate, and you get things like the extreme sort of religious approach where you basically deny that all these things are happening in the world. And then, of course, when people realize that they are, unless you have an insanely cohesive community, like an Anabaptist, Amish or something community, where you really have to go back to that community to have any family, to the people you knew for the first 16 years of your life. Beyond them, everybody else just sort of acquiesces to the culture. It just says, well, this is it. You know, I mean, I listen to Top 40 and I watch porn and I get choked when I have sex.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, our cell phones are the easiest example. Like, I don't know the actual thing. I don't know if I'm just spewing the reverse side of it that's also propaganda. But as far as I know, I mean, if you have whether it's a Verizon cell phone, whether the lithium ion batteries or whatever, it seems like it's a pretty dirty market when it comes to slave labor and extremely bad work conditions. And, you may hate Chick-fil-A and Walmart, but you're not doing everything you can. You're not living a clean life. If that's your stance, you're contradicting yourself in so many ways that you don't realize or don't care to face. So at the very least, drop a little bit of the venom. That's all I ask. I don't even say you need to feel like a bad person, but drop a little bit of the extreme judgment for everybody not aligning with your battle. I thought, we had as a slam poet who was really, really big in the Black culture movement that we knew, that we grew up around in the slam poetry scene when you and I were doing slam poetry. And it was like every post turned into this thing where she also got into fat shaming. And that's something we could talk about after I say this stuff's actually great because it ties into our beginnings, our like when we knew each other in the beginning, led to our friendship. The slam poetry thing, and also being fat persons, is something we can really relate to. I mean, we were obviously we were two of the fat kids in our grade. There was a handful of them, and boy, was it a handful. But we were two of
a strong man
kids. Yes. and this person makes it sound like anything that you do that is geared towards better dieting or healthy lifestyle, or if it seemed like she was trying to say that if every day you don't outwardly acknowledge Black oppression and basically see everything through that lens, you were the problem. We've shared posts before where it's like, man, I can't imagine abiding by this law. And it's like, I want to.
Yeah, it is a law.
I like helping. I get it, but God, not to that extent. I mean,
right. And who is making the sort of larger decision, the meta decision of what goes into these categories, right? You just have to basically be you have to conform to some media lane that you think is righteous, and then you magnify what they say because you've already decided in your head you're on this side. And these are the clergymen that represent my side.
And Black oppression is not the only oppression that exists. So it was the only thing she was making a stance about. I mean, feminism, but female oppression and Black oppression are two issues of many issues. And even if they are at the top, how can you only, that's not the way. You then scale it. Then 10% of your post should be towards some other, whether you want to stand up for Islamophobia or be anti-Islam. No, I don't know. Whatever oppression you want to be a part of tearing down.
It'd be really interesting if we had more of a grab bag sort of approach to this, because right now it's like the camps are very delineated on all the issues. You could probably tell where somebody stands on all these issues we're talking about, like fat shaming, Black Lives Matter, all these different cultural issues. If you just ask them what they think about Anthony Fauci, and they said oh, he's a great guy doing the best we can. Okay, well, you're probably all these other things because we live in this sort of really weird existence. But it would be kind of fun if we had a grab bag where you were, and it used to, I honestly feel like our culture used to have more of this. You used to see it on weird independent websites back before the web became, social media companies, where this guy's or like the Black Israelites, they're a great example, or there's a lot of good examples of sort of weird hodgepodge stuff, but we don't have a lot of that. There's more conformity now. But going back to the fat shaming thing. So the person you're talking about, I think you're talking about, they were saying you shouldn't fat shame, correct? I mean, that's obvious. You didn't even have to clarify that point.
It was her business.
What else you said?
It was. It became a business. That was her whole thing. Was like she was selling pretty much a thing.
He was
Remember,
the antichrist of a dietitian.
pretty much, man. I forget what her thing was as far as her brand, but I mean, her website, and she had a TED talk about body positivity,
right,
and stuff.
Yeah.
And,
okay. Right. Well, it's interesting for me as a fat kid, because as I became an adult and started to learn about how I didn't have to be like a fat kid, I realized like a big thing that was taken away from me was shame. I don't remember being shamed for being, and people made fun of me for being fat, but I mean, that was fine. Like it wasn't shame. It was like, I don't know, it didn't hurt me in a deep way.
right.
But there was no generalized shame. Like, hey, you should really, you or your parents should really try and deal with this now, because it's going to be probably a lifetime battle for you. And the earlier that you can change some of these habits, the better. The less you'll struggle with it. There was none of that.
Hey, whoa,
zero.
Steve. Hey, whoa. Hey, crossing some lines there, big guy. Seriously though, I mean, how can that be framed as a negative perspective? It's like literally the empowerment you give somebody when you make them realize that they actually don't have to be fat. And if you can change the framework of identification and let them know the choices that they have, and you don't need to humiliate them for being the way they are, because we all have issues, and we all have stuff. And if it wasn't food or a lack of exercise or whatever, it could easily be something else. But you do have an option. And what would you rather be? And if you do go down that path and give it a fighter's chance and say, I'm going to try to diet, I'm going to try to work out, and you come up a little bit short, or it fluctuates, like, okay, but we might as well try it, right? Maybe you got a thyroid condition, right?
We might as well let you know that you're not. We might as well let you know that this isn't like an immutable thing, and then that was big when we were in high school, was sort of maybe the peak of like finding some of these genetic markers, and then saying like, oh, well, we've seen a correlation between this person having this genetic marker and then, either being fat or developing a disease. That was really in the heyday of that new science. And so there was this sort of deterministic, like, well, you got to look at your family history and see like where, because what they did, you'll probably have to do the same thing. And of course, there's a lot of reasons that would be true that are not genetics, like they're in your family and they raised you. But even if it was true, that's, it's such an unhelpful thing. And I wish somebody had taken me aside and been like, listen, like, don't eat a gallon of goldfish tonight.
Yeah. I know. Yeah, I do.
Like just don't do it. Don't do it. You can't do it. I'm taking it away. That would have been helpful. That would have been helpful to me, because I know now that if I hadn't started in my early 20s realizing that, and if I was now 10 years later, if I had tried to start, that seems really fucking difficult to me.
Very difficult.
I'm pulling from a tool bag, but if I didn't have one, I'm not sure.
Yeah.
I'd just give up, I guess.
Yeah. And since we figured it out at a younger age, we had the luxury of, being with attractive girls. No, no. But it's like, no, it was, I can just recall, I don't know if you can recall this. See, I agree. I didn't feel much direct shame, right? I didn't feel like it's exactly like you're talking about, but it was probably the thing I hated the most about myself.
I agree. Yeah.
I accepted it, but like, if somebody's wheelchair bound, they might have thick skin or they might not feel shame for being in a wheelchair. Right. But they probably, if they could fix anything about themselves, maybe they would pick, it'd be nice to not have this wheelchair bound thing I got going on. And most people who are obese, especially if you're somebody that could lose 80 plus pounds, most of those people would probably say that is the thing they hate the most about their lives. And now that I've spent a career in strength and conditioning, personal training, and I've had many clients who've gone from being heavy to at a healthier weight, or just feeling better about the way they look. And I've just seen it happen. Like a couple of my buddies that worked with me when I was younger, and after I lost weight, it was easy for me to just they saw what I did and they started doing it, and then they lost weight. And maybe they went back and forth, and we're people that, because we've developed that thing and it's a part of us, we do fluctuate a little bit, and we've gained and lost weight, but it's never been what it was. And it's never been the thing that I hate the most about me again, probably, or it's definitely, it's taken time to switch the identity, because you definitely develop certain confidences and some insecurities where maybe there's a little bit of, there's probably some lingering dysmorphia or something, or two sides of the coin. You recognize how much better you look, but it's hard to, you don't really know what it's like to have a different identity, because you're still the same person. So it took time. It took time to adjust and be normal about the way I was. I still had some like lingering fat kid mentality for probably till my younger 20s, till I probably got into like powerlifting and that kind of stuff.
I would want to, like the body image shame, I do think is really damaging, if it's on that level of body shame. You're saying about hating yourself, and I do, and maybe on that level there is a shame, but the shame that I'm talking about is it is more of like, you're a member of this community, you're another human being out here, and like, don't you want to live to the fullest potential? Because right now the only thing that's stopping you is how you're eating. It's really just this very simple thing. And so there was none of that's saying, listen, you're living in the world's richest culture to ever exist, and you're living in the highest caloric environment ever to exist, and like, you're probably going to have to develop, you particularly, because obviously you really like to eat, or maybe you have all these, there's a million, I love all these reasons why people overeat, and you got to find your little discrete reason why you're an overeater and all these sort of things. But in just framing it, there was no global framing to say, we live in a society where you can easily do this. It doesn't have to go really off the rails. Look at the population level data. It doesn't have to go off the rails for any individual person to start putting on 40, 50, 60 extra pounds. It just happens.
Right.
I mean, I don't think all of these people are like eating because of some particular psychological disorder. I think a lot of them are eating because food is really good, and it's available. I mean, it can be very simple. I just liked eating goldfish. I mean, maybe I was sad and hiding my feelings, and there was all this subconscious thing, but at the time it really just seemed like tasty.
Yeah. I like good things and food that tastes good. I want to keep eating until I'm full. I didn't have a full sensor that was like other people's. Even at a young age, I used to always think, I don't know when this stopped, and I think it was more probably because I was drinking sugary stuff. It was probably when I started drinking water, but I used to think it so much so I would tell people I had the name of it, where I felt like I was always thirsty.
Yeah.
I always felt thirsty. Let me go ahead and just say, we'll get back to this, but I want to, this will lead into like our earliest big memory of hanging out in like 9th grade and getting into trouble together. We should talk about that.
Okay.
That is epic. As far as like, it was.
Do you want to do an intro, or do you want to?
I'm just going to say, no, I mean, people will see your name in the thing. Isn't that enough?
In the feed.
No. Why do you need an intro?
Yeah, no, that's fine.
I already gave 4 intros, This
Jesus
is
Christ,
I'm done with intros. So, as a matter of fact, I'm going to tell my roommate. What's up, dude? Oh, you're good. My roommate just walked in. So for those who don't know,
right. Now,
which
do you
is
want me
probably
to do you want me
everyone
to
would say.
kick it off, or do you want to go?
Oh, well, I was just going to say that Steve and I went to the same high school, and that is where we became friends first, and definitely had some of that, like, because we are similar personality types, we clearly got along, but there was like probably a competitive thing about
For
us in
sure.
high school, especially when we got into the slam poetry and that sort of thing. But we were friends in ninth grade English class, probably just based on the fact that we were both kind of outspoken and into the same kind of like music and movies to a degree and that sort of thing. And then I don't even know if we had hung out much before this incident. Had we hung out a whole lot?
Not a no, because at the time you had invited me over to your house, your dad's house at the time. And I swear I had told my mom I was going to go spend the night at your house. And that's not what she thought. I don't remember the end of, we'll get to it. But yeah, I think it was like the first or second time we had substantially hung out.
Yeah.
So it really set a bad precedent, I think.
I think we went years without hanging out. I don't think we ever hung out again after this incident, except for to do our punishment together.
Right.
Until we started doing slam poetry, and we weren't really friends until senior year. I got into that in junior year. We were arch nemesis. And then senior year, by the end of senior year, we were pretty good friends.
Well, we were really just the two best slam poets. That's really all that was going on there.
Yeah. So it was and inevitably became this feud. And since we weren't friends at the time much, it became an inevitable sort of thing. And I don't think it was like extreme hatred, but anyway, let's go back to ninth grade. So this is too funny, dude, because it's funny because the last story I told, having Claire on, involved us doing the push outs at Walmart. And now I'm telling this story. I think we
Psychedelic Criminal podcast.
Yes. Yeah. I think that we both just thought things that were exciting and edgy. And you were into like you gave me a copy of the Anarchist Cookbook when we were in ninth grade.
Really?
Yeah. You had a printout. You either printed it out for me.
I had all those pamphlets that I gotten in trouble for. It wasn't a pamphlet. Yeah.
You literally gave me a green binder with like a 3-prong binder that had the Anarchist Cookbook printed out.
Okay. I did print shit like that out. Yeah.
Yeah. So you printed me a copy of the Anarchist Cookbook. And I remember like showing my brother all this stuff.
That's dope.
Yeah. So I read a lot of it. I remember like they gave some like funny advice, and I did some of the shit in there, like to get back at people. They were like, you could write
the pranks were great.
The pranks to get back at somebody. You could write messages in paint thinner on their lawn and stuff about like, I think like mailing card, whatever, like little obnoxious things, like little obnoxious. Yeah. And I may or may not have acted on some of that. There was like the big thing about the Anarchist Cookbook is there was like directions to make homemade bombs.
But we didn't use it for the following thing.
No, we didn't. But that would just kind of, it set the tone, I think, for why I thought you would be a good person and probably why my wheels started spinning of what sort of like crazy stuff we could get into.
And also, scene setting there where your house was, the only thing to go to.
Yes. Was the elementary school.
The elementary school. And it was right there. So of course we were going to go.
I'll tell you, because I think I was the one that pitched the idea, or maybe we brainstormed it, but my initial thought was I knew that they had these vending machines at the school rec center. And I just thought they probably have I probably thought they had more money than they did, but I thought they probably had a decent amount of money in it. And I
thought I knew how to get it out.
We thought that we
together thought we could do.
You had the tools. You brought like a hammer or something. And I just knew that it couldn't be that hard. I don't know. Yeah, you probably thought you could you get into it somehow. And I was totally game. And yeah, we thought it was a great idea. At the time, there was nothing wrong about this decision.
And the rec center was not, I mean, it's deceptive to say that, because really what we were talking about is the supply closet, the outdoor standalone supply building.
Right. They eventually built an actual rec center there that is
after we wrecked that one.
Yeah. but this wasn't like a gymnasium. Okay. This was, you're right. No. It was a supply thing that, I mean, yeah, it had some like extra gloves and bats and stuff. We didn't really take anything out of there. We just had our mindset on fuck it. We
didn't steal anything.
Nothing.
That we could have.
No.
We were so dumb. Actually, I would remember looking around and thinking, because, you know, you don't know about tools, you don't know about equipment at that age. Yeah. You know, you're like 13, 14, all of that stuff. Well, this is worthless. The only thing that I could possibly use is money.
Yeah, we just wanted the money out of it.
Yeah.
So we were ninth graders. So I basically said, hey, right up the street, there's an elementary school. We should go up there. And at the time, I had a middle school from like 5th grade, especially like middle school. Whenever I hung out with the Heslins in their neighborhood, we terrorized their neighborhood. You know, we did the stereotypical, you run around, you knock on everybody's doors, but sometimes it got way more extreme than that. You know, it was like vandalizing stuff. So that was like my influence into that. And this was like the grand peak of my vandalization days. So I pitched this idea. Hey, there's a vending machine. I bet you there's money in it. Do you think we could get into it? I figured, especially since you had this anarchist cookbook thing, you probably knew how to break into this bitch. And yeah, so do you remember anything else about it backstory wise?
You know, I'm just trying to remember what time of year it was, but it was warm,
I don't think it was. Yeah, I don't think it was cold.
I think the key thing. Yeah, it was during the school year, because the key thing is that we get over there and there's a bunch of fucking kids around.
A bunch of kids there. It was
a bunch of kids, and we should have really. I mean, that showed how inexperienced we were, because we really should have failed. Probably springtime, and it must have been,
because we've probably been friends all through ninth grade, and then it's probably like parent teacher conference night in springtime.
Okay, well, there was all these kids there for a parent teacher conference. We were like talking to these kids, just waiting for them to leave.
Yeah, I know.
That was a really, really dumb. That was stupid. Yeah, so we wait for them to leave. And I don't think we had any finesse or really great ideas about getting in there. I think we just beat off the lock.
Beat the hell out of it, dude. How long did it take to get the door?
We had a good time. We had a good time beating it off. I do remember that.
Yes.
I mean, I don't know if we had like a Mountain Dew or something before we went over there. We were real jacked up.
We were some pre-workout.
We beat that off, and we get inside. And
took a while.
I mean, the fact that nobody came is remarkable.
Crazy, man. Crazy. So we get
at least a half an hour. At least a half an hour to
get into the building of just beating it with a hammer. That's all we did. It was a claw hammer, if I recall. Maybe it was
the cop for Norrisville used to sit there.
I know.
And he wasn't there that night, but it was a bad plan. Yeah. So we beat it open, I guess, and there's just the one vending machine. One vending machine,
a Gatorade machine.
Yeah, Gatorade machine. And I don't think we could get into it.
We tried.
And we got it open. I don't think we ever got the money container, which was in another lock and key.
I know.
We never got money out. I think we got a few coins out the slats. I think we
didn't even bring like a screwdriver or anything.
We didn't even have a screwdriver. Yeah, we had a hammer. I mean, I guess we figured what couldn't be accomplished
with a hammer. You just
with beating it. Eventually, you just
break it open, and then you break the thing containing.
I might have had a crowbar.
I think you did, but I don't know if we really used it. I don't even think we knew how to.
I don't think I knew how to use a crowbar.
No idea. The crowbar actually
hitting
might have helped us get into the door, though. I don't remember. Like, we beat the handle off eventually, I think, and then it just kind of swung open, and we were like, "Hallelujah!" I really don't know how it opened, but it was an awesome moment when that door opened, and finally
that was a big
we were
accomplishment.
in that rec center. And then, yeah, we just beat the living shit out of the Gatorade machine. Everything we could do to get the money out. And I mean, we probably were the whole thing was over an hour. Because I mean, we were determined to get the money out of that fucking machine.
We were there for a long time.
We were just looking at it. So, and like trying to figure out how to do it, taking turns, dude, it was a long, long time. And what wound up happening is, I guess we just gave up, or did we get scared and thinking somebody was coming up and like run away? I remember running through that graveyard to get away.
Not until after we decided we were going to tip it.
Oh,
dump it out the door.
Yes.
And we push it out the door and it tumbles. And for whatever reason, we didn't, thinking back, we didn't think about hitting the door as being loud, or maybe we did, but that doesn't stand out to me. But I know when we dropped it over, that was really fucking
loud.
And
yeah, we knocked it over. That's right.
We saw a car. I mean, it was loud. We started going through the graveyard. It's all shadowy. The car comes and we just bolt.
Yes.
And then we bolt over to your house. And then we're like, it's maybe 3 or 4 minutes over there or less. Yeah. And my mom is driving up the driveway because she didn't think I was spending the night. And she's like looking for me. She didn't know where your house was. You remember this?
Yes,
and I got right in the car with her and left. And we didn't even get to hang out after this.
Not at all.
At all. Because it only took like 2 days before that little kid narked on us, and we got
so a kid that saw us,
we got caught.
A kid that saw us up there told his parents that he saw us up there, and then they found out that we did it. It lined up. They called my dad. They called my mom, whatever.
We had to sign a bunch of papers and pay for the thing, and then do community service.
We had to paint all the benches at the rec center in like the pavilion. We painted them all.
I don't know why they had us do that together, because it really wasn't that bad of a time. It was the only time we got to hang out after that.
I had fun painting the benches. I had no issue painting the benches. That was fun. And then it was cool to like go up there again and see the benches that we painted, because I lived right up there. So for like, I don't know I think eventually maybe they painted them a different color, but for years and years they were painted, and we were like, that's us, dude. We should even like signed our names on them, put a little metal emblem, like, that would have been, I felt good about those benches. But this was like the most demoralizing thing. I think he said this when you and I were up there, because the guy, Scott, who was the chairman of the rec council, who decided not to, I don't think he called the cops or anything. He just talked to my dad.
We did have to sign something that admitted that we did it.
Yes.
And we had to pay him back for the full cost of the thing
on top of it,
which involved, for me, working for my stepfather, like licking 1 million post envelopes.
Oh my dude, I did a very, I had to do them like 1
cent a piece. That's what they were worth. That's what he paid somebody else to do them.
Dude, I did a similar thing. I think for my mom, I'm pretty sure this is linked. My mom was mailing out stuff for a reunion because she was in charge of reunions. I'm almost positive, unless I was making money for something else, I'm almost positive that was a part of like the thing that it was to pay it back. I had to lick the envelopes and put the stamps on as part of.
I think it might have been postcards. It might have just been some kind of stamp roll. Anyway, that whole thing for me, and I'm trying to remember the time. It was either early in the school year or late.
I think late, because I don't remember being in school with you that long after it. It was probably way towards. It might have even been like just after the end of the school year.
Because I had gotten in trouble either immediately, like in the other half of the school year, I guess the beginning, for passing out pamphlets in school, anarchist pamphlets. And then they had called like Homeland Security it was the beginnings of Homeland Security right after 9/11. It was like the Homeland Security sheriff's liaison came in, and they wanted to do a psychological evaluation, and they thought I was going to come in and shoot up the school. I was going to be like a terrorist and like kill everybody.
That's great.
I'm laughing at the principal. What was his name? The big guy.
Thatcher. Thatcher was our ninth grade principal.
And he's 10th grade he's reading these quotes about anarchists and about things that have been done to anarchists, and then saying, "Isn't that awful? Like, why would you have this in here?" I said, "Do you not?" I'm like, "You don't get it? You don't understand? You don't understand what you're reading?" It was a really bizarre thing. And anyway, for me, that was a bad year, because they were all sure, my whole family was pretty sure I was, doomed, mentally corrupt.
Yeah.
And after that, it was like, he might be like an anarchist, bomb throwing terrorist.
I elbowed him. That principal,
Thatcher.
I got into a fight, and right as I went to punch the kid, he was behind me going to grab me. And I did that stereotypical cock back. And when I cocked back, I didn't know that it was like perfect timing. And I elbowed him like right in his, I guess like his chest or something, going to punch a kid. Yeah. In 10th grade, I did that. Do you remember though, this was like the most demoralizing part about it. The chairman of the rec council, I was like, why didn't you guys take the money? It was like, we tried. So that was our goal. Now, this is insane. One thing we got from there, they never knew we got this, was a key to the shed that had the tractor. And I had an idea, which I think we could have been successful in trying. I don't know if it would have made it all the way through. That I was going to put a weight on the seat so you could get off the tractor, because I knew that the tractor shut off. And I actually had experience in riding a lawnmower. So I was going to get the lawnmower out. I was going to run it through the front doors of the school.
Right.
So if we didn't get caught for this, I was going to go up, break into the shed, get the tractor out, line it up to the front doors, turn it on, hit the gas, hop off of it with like a concrete something on it. So it was enough weight so it didn't auto turn off. And I was just going to let it run straight into the front doors of the school and run away.
Yeah. So. Yeah. Well, that would have been a good senior prank, better than the one we had.
Oh yeah. That was crazy.
We don't have to go into all
that. No, people thought I did that. I was so pissed. Yeah. A couple people, there was a rumor going around that I did it. It was a racist prank. Somebody, hung a dummy of a black person at the top. We can get that far. I mean, it
was very
pranks at our school.
It's hard to describe like that, because that like implies that it was really obvious what was going on in the prank. But you only knew if you walked over to the football field, and they ushered us all into the cafeteria or something like that. It was
I don't think I saw it. I think I just knew what happened.
You only heard it characterized to you. I saw a picture later on, but that guy that you're talking about, Scott, the rec guy, is that his name?
Scott, yes.
Yeah, Scott. Speaking of body shaming, when I first met him, he had already known you. And so I meet him with my mom, and, he's giving me the big lecture about, I don't know why you did this, blah, blah, blah. And then he looks me up and down and is like, I mean, he clearly didn't make you do it. You fatso.
Yeah.
He didn't push you over there.
Yeah.
And I don't know why he even thought like that. They really thought you had more of a reputation as being a trouble starter, I guess.
I mean,
they didn't like you.
Yeah, I definitely had a little bit of that reputation by then. It was a bit of both, because I was known as being a sports kid when I was younger. And then by high school, I think I just was, known as a little bit of a trouble starter. I was polarizing. Some people really loved me and would think the world of me, and some people thought I was, Satan. So cut right down the middle all through high school, man. Some teachers would tell you, some people, that guy, he didn't necessarily hate me. And since then, he actually added me on Facebook. He's an all right guy. There's nothing.
He seemed fine, honestly. I mean, it could have been so. I mean, we were really.
He thought he was being helpful.
Pretty lucky.
He could have called the
cops.
He
was being helpful.
Yeah,
he didn't call the cops.
Yeah,
he did. He was helpful because it could have been. He tried to estimate what the police response would have been. And do it and have a sign a thing without calling the cops, which I think, we were minors. It would have been, who knows? Maybe it would have turned to nothing. We could have just said, no, we didn't do that. There was only that little kid who saw us there.
Yeah. We could have just denied it to the end.
Man, I remember his face too.
I know.
And I remember after the fact thinking, I know exactly which fucking kid did this.
Yeah. He rode my bus.
Skinny little loser.
Yeah. I would have fucking fatted his ass out the window if I wouldn't. I got in enough trouble though. I was like, I'm done. I'm not. I'm gonna let this just be for a little bit. Now,
we really cooled it off. We didn't talk that much.
What did your when your mom knew? Do you ever remember your mom thinking it was like, he's hanging out with Mike again when we became friends? Is she still a little like, I don't know about that guy?
She's cool about it now, but for sure, because the next significant amount of time we spent together outside of school, we did a lot of shit. When we started doing slam, we were seeing each other all the time. But when we went to New York,
right,
for 2 weeks right after senior year, and stayed with my uncle in Brooklyn, she was worried. Yeah, she was really worried because not only were we going, we were driving up, we were staying with my, revolutionary communist uncle in Brooklyn, on his couch. And we were just going to go up to Massachusetts. We were just going to, wing it and be fine.
Yeah.
And I think she would have felt fine about me doing it alone or with most people. But there was definitely a look in her eye.
Okay.
It's like, you're going with Mike. Waiting for the arrest call.
Yeah.
And honestly, it could have happened because we did just meander through New York. We got lost on the subway.
But there was nothing debauch. We didn't do anything debaucherous there.
No, we were trying pretty seriously at slam poetry, both of us at that time.
Yeah. We didn't do anything remotely. There's nothing we did that was bad. We just were young. And didn't know. New York City is tough to navigate when you don't know any better.
When I think about it now, we navigated it without GPS or anything. And we just came down from Connecticut. We stopped, asked for directions just wherever we were. We really didn't care.
Yeah. It went well.
I thought we did pretty good. Except for I almost killed us a couple times driving, but beyond that,
I would have done the same. We accidentally drove through the heart of Manhattan because we were, you didn't mean to do it. We meant to just go to Brooklyn where we're going to park. And then from there we would ride the subway everywhere. But you made a wrong turn or something. And next thing you know, we were in it felt like 20 lanes of driving, but it was probably just 6 lanes of and there's just everybody's honking and there's just people walking. I couldn't imagine driving that back then. Now I could do it, you just do as the car ahead of you, but changing lanes and stuff, that's pretty stressful.
I had driven in DC and kind of had thought Baltimore, DC, I know those, so I'll be okay. And it was totally different. But that trip was pretty much business. I think we both took slam pretty seriously at that time.
Yeah. It was a cool thing we were doing. We took a lot of pride in it. Do you still talk to that uncle?
And we had a duo piece about
the Gatorade thing.
The Gatorade thing.
That was a very funny, people enjoyed that. That was a very comedic
crowd
thing.
Pleaser.
Yeah. Now, do you still talk to that uncle at all? I have never heard you talk about that uncle.
Jimmy.
Since then.
We've run into each other here and there, but he's still really hardline committed to the Revolutionary Communist Party and Babavekian, and which is a very specific sort of Marxist Leninist Maoist set. You open up their newspaper and it says like, our ideology is Marxist Leninist Maoism, our party is the Revolutionary Communist Party, our leader is Babavekian. It's very ideologically driven to a point that's almost absurd for most people. He's a really smart guy, and he's been doing that thing up in New York for forever, and definitely influenced me. But he was trying. I went up there before, a couple years before that, and he really tried to push me into work with the Revolutionary Youth Brigade, which was like the youth arm of the Revolutionary Communist Party. And I was just like, nah, I'm an anarchist, solidarity, but I don't want anything to do with it. But he's still doing that. He's still in that same project, and I'm sure I could stay there anytime and he'd be a gracious host. I'm sure of that.
Yeah, no. Yeah. And I've always thought that that sort of communism, well, I don't know his specific form, but like the types of people that get into that, like, and the anarchism, there is something reflectionary of one to the other. It's almost like the opposite reaction to the same obvious problem is where it kind of stems from. So there's a lot of common ground despite being polar opposites. So it's like, no, we don't agree at all. But at the same time, they're like two of the only people that look at the political landscape as being just toxic or destructive. It's like really two of the only parties that are like pretty much anti the general term system.
I think when classical anarchists, and communists generally felt like they should come through some sort of dialogue that leads to a more unified theory. At least I think that was kind of the feeling among some people. And it had to do with sort of seeing capitalism as the overarching thing. And the anarchist state critique usually would take a back seat. So you would have more like working together. I guess they are both reactions to to the state of the world. I mean, I guess any extreme or radical view of the world that says there needs to be a fundamental change will have some similarities. And of course, most people aren't going to want to stick with something like that, because it would mean giving up so many things.
It's funny right now. So since you're in since the room's gotten darker since you've started and you're wearing a hat, so just look at your, it looks like you just have a tiny head.
Yeah, I know. Fat man, tiny head.
Yeah. Steve, where are you pulling all this information at with such a little brain? Jeez, God, you sure are smart for that little.
I know. I always thought my head was really big because I had dreads in high school, and it was like, I could never wear, like when I went to prom and tried to get a hat.
Yeah,
it wouldn't fit.
I didn't realize until I shaved my head. When I was a part of the skinhead party. No, when I shaved my head at the beginning of COVID, it was like the first time I didn't have hair that was like longer on the top than the sides.
Yeah.
And I was like, maybe my head looks big because I always kind of poof my hair a little and just kind of have that messy, even if it's not long hair, kind of big hair look. Mm-hmm. And I realized that my head, the top of my head was not tremendously, like my forehead wasn't actually gigantic. I had a gigantic forehead. This is a good question for you. I thought you would be a good person to ask this. I meant to ask Claire this, but I forgot. Since that you're somebody that's known me since before I ever did psychedelics, right? Mm-hmm. Do you notice a difference in me as a person since I would say I'm on the other side of my experimental phase? I really no longer smoke pot. I'm drinking wine. I'm not a drinker, so I get to have like a little bit, and I mean, DMT only lasts like 5 to 10 minutes. And if I do it, I do a small amount just to sort of dip my toes in, I ate a little bit of mushrooms occasionally, but again, it's all kind of lighter. I don't microdose regularly. I don't smoke pot.
Right.
So I'm kind of on the other side of it. But for a handful of years, I kind of went all into, it was because the therapeutic effects and the otherworldly nature of it. But do you think I'm a changed person from it?
On the other side of it now.
Yeah, because it's been so many years of it,
I noticed, I don't think that I think there's probably been a change. It's not super perceptible because I scratched my head when you first asked the question. So I'm not lunging at some big change that you've made. But I do think when you were going through that phase was perhaps the most different.
Yes.
Because you were not just high and in a psychoactive sense, but you were having this like total, complete experience of immersing yourself in this whole bubble of things. And so that was a bit of a change. And when you started that was when you were with Step, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And I remember thinking that despite all that, when you weren't in it, I think you came out and visited us. You were, it clearly hadn't changed much about, who you were and your sense of values and thoughts and stuff like that. But when we would run across each other while you were more excited about it, or in the middle of it, or right after, or in the afterglow or whatever. And it was so frequently that it was like
all the time.
It was like a stretched out, wormhole almost. That I would say was the highest like energy you've probably ever put off. Like, that you were definitely on another wavelength than what most other people were. But you were still, I noticed that. I don't know if other people would have.
Yeah, only you're right. And because I was so open, it was like eager to talk to somebody that I could talk to about it, if I met somebody that was willing to actually intellectualize it, which is rare, and maybe judge you, but not overly cast you. It was rare to find somebody that I could talk to about it, like I could talk to about it with you. And then it was nice to pick your brain about it as somebody that knew a decent amount, but also would probably find some of the stuff at the very least interesting. It's hard to find people that are interested without having strong psychedelic egos themselves, meaning people that have had a lot of experience. Most people just don't they don't even want to consider it too much unless they've done it a lot. And even then it's just kind of waiting to get their point in or their view in.
Yeah, I'm definitely, I mean, usually I'm pretty good at sitting in that liminal position of like step a toe in, read about it, kind of think about it. I'm not really quick to commit. I remember reading like some of those Plants of the Gods and looking at some of the research on, addiction recovery after psychedelics, and sort of going down that rabbit hole, reading some of the stuff from the 60s. For me, I knew that I didn't love the culture right away after exploring that part of it. It was like, I think I probably fundamentally disagree with some of the takeaways that people are getting from here, but there's a lot of possibility in the whole thing, it's from just experiencing it. It was like, this is the tip of the fucking iceberg with how people have written about it and how people have explored it. It's so like one-dimensional. It's like coming from this consumer society where everything has to have this utilitarian value that fits into these like sort of preordained needs, or scarcities. And that made it all kind of droll to me. But the way you talked about it was not like that, which I thought was always interesting, because you have the ability to not talk about things in the way that the culturally dominant way would be. Right. You can say, well, I don't care what they are saying, so I'm going to talk about it in my own way. And it would always surprise me, because it was like, hints of the sort of classical literature on psychedelics, and then just like some other shit. You would just be like, you'd go out and be like, if you felt something, you would start thinking about it and start reaching for it. And so yeah, you changed most, I think, in probably ways that most people won't perceive, because it's more how you are approaching your own life and your own sort of life as narrative or whatever.
Yeah, it would probably be more of like a spiritual sense that you could discover through many things, through aging, through intellectualizing, and you could come to similar conclusions without psychedelics. So it's not like your buddy who accidentally ate 20 tabs of acid one time, and then for the rest of the life, you're just like, wow, dude, the screws are loose for you. You know, I still was able to stay relatively grounded in the way that I processed. I just had all this new stuff to process. And when it was fresh and coming on, it was like so epic and so extraordinary. I just couldn't believe what I was going through. And I am passionate and I do have a high energy, and that stuff is energizing. Like it gives you an even stronger energy. And like I would describe it, it's like my most 100 screw walking into a cage to fight somebody or all these other crazy things. The most extraordinary moments of my life are probably psychedelic, and it replaced a lot of potentially traumatic things or other things where they were no longer the most significant identifying parts of my life. So I could see how, depending on your situation, but ultimately I really hate how people think that anything is the cure. Like in this whole pot revolution that we're in, it's like, if you tell somebody that you're in pain, they're like, well, have you tried weed? You know, that's so stupid. You know, you're depressed. Have you tried pot? Have you, like, are you kidding me? That's what we live in. And now that that is what psychedelics are going to turn into. That's what mushrooms are going to turn into. I mean, I think it's great to experiment with. Like I would say, I couldn't imagine why trying microdosing mushrooms and maybe trying one moderate, even large dose. I don't know what the risk would actually be. But at the same time, to say that this stuff cures anything is stupid.
Right. It's probably a bit of misunderstanding what's going on, because you're already setting out to look for certain measurable effects that will justify more liberalization of the use of the drug.
Yeah.
And that's probably a bad place to start from.
Dangerous.
Yeah, because why? Right. Yeah. We should probably be more, I mean, it kind of, for me, it gets back to like the porn thing. You know, we see this like, I mean, permissiveness is how they would talk about it in like the 70s or 80s in society. But it's really just a lack of having any guiding principles on these things. Like you didn't, you being able to tell somebody younger, like, here's kind of how my experience went with using psychedelics, and here's how I would kind of guide you, without you saying that you need to take a psychedelic to fix a problem.
Yeah.
I don't think that's the direction we're headed. I think you're right. It's probably headed more towards prescribing, medicalization of all of these things. And I don't think that they're medical devices. I don't think they should be.
Yeah.
Even if they have those ancillary effects, they're just that devalues what's going on there.
That's the other thing. You're doing so much more than what it is being prescribed for. So you should probably be aware of all of the potential.
That's a good way to
scope.
put it, right?
And that's why I always thought I should go in on it. Like, why am I the person who competes the most in jiu-jitsu out of like the entire state? Because I want to have tasted it enough where I can have that wisdom. So it came to a point with psychedelics that I didn't want to do it to solve problems. I wanted to do it to understand it and get as many slices of, that it had to offer, so I could be somebody that understood it and be a voice of reason for what can go on and what it is. And I started seeing it as the study of psychedelics more than actually any sort of transformative. Initially, it was, yes, there was transformative things. And along the way, I got to experience firsthand a lot of what it can potentially do, and the teachings that might come from it, and why people might call it a plant medicine, and what people might be talking about when they're talking about interdimensions and infinite beings and whatever, aliens and crazy geometry and inner webbings of your sense of self. I got to experience a lot of quantum mechanics. It seemed like a lot of these things that I got to experience through that lens. But it really, for me, became a study of psychedelics. And how else are you going to study them unless you're just going to use, like a lot of them, they just say, well, let me find some 100 schmucks to eat this shit and see what they go through. But that didn't seem like
see what they tell you about what they go through.
Yeah, it's happened along the way. I have seen 100 plus people do DMT. Maybe that might be an exaggeration, but I have seen a lot of people, and I've talked to people who've done it. But it was more about like, how do you get good at landscaping, not having everybody else cut grass and tell you how they do it. Right. So I just, it was this blue collar approach to, and I am that person that I learned through doing. So that's the long story short with that. We don't have to go too much further into that, but it does lead into a good question. So you are somebody, and I think what probably interests you most, I mean, I could be misspeaking, but I could imagine that psychedelics at the very least interest you in the same way that any sort of thing that falls under the spectrum of like biohacking or sort of like optimization. Like you could see the potential benefits in experimenting with a lot of things to be optimal and to fire on all cylinders. And you're a good person to ask, like, if you had to put your name, you're John Hancock, to anything biohacking related, whether it's a supplement, whether it's a dietary thing, whether it is exercise, things that affect your hormones, things that affect your overall health, your mental state, you could say, oh, well,
what's my one weird trick?
Anything. You can actually say, like, what types of things would you sign your name to? Because you're somebody that I go to for useful information when it comes to diet, lifestyle, knowing about things in general. You're pretty well researched, and you have a pretty good scope on things like that. Like you don't tout yourself as being this Ben Greenfield or whatever, but you probably could do well in a conversation with them or be on a panel of something like that, just being the type of researcher that you are. An experimenter, even though it's not as extreme as me, you experiment enough. So what types of things do you think have an obvious effect on life, existence, even if it's just like whatever, dietary stuff, supplementation? Is there anything that stands out or course of action?
It's interesting you say optimal, and my battery is dying here, by the way, if we get abruptly cut off.
If you get cut, if it dies, it dies.
If it dies, it dies. That's what I figured you'd say. So I guess I don't think about things in terms of optimal much anymore. And I think I've even started to think that the framework of just kind of like health as this sort of, what does it really mean, is maybe not great. So I think that the only things that I kind of always come back to for myself, and that I think maybe have larger application, is kind of learning to suffer and learning what discipline means for you. If you can't, I've gone through a lot of diets and things like that. The only underlying similarity was that they were hard, and they all the ones that worked, because they required, so it wasn't really the diet.
Yeah.
It was the discipline. It was being able to find out what motivates me to keep myself in check in a world where you don't have, let's be honest, we don't have like a robust community to fall back on. Maybe martial arts is probably an interesting exception to that.
Yeah.
In some cases.
We're not hunter-gatherers. We don't live
right. We don't
survive.
have this. We don't have a tight-knit community to fall back on. We don't have a set, clear set of cultural values or virtues or anything that we can go back to and say, well, this is like kind of how I'm guiding. Let me get back to center because I know this to be true, because from my vernacular childhood, where I learned just how things are as you learn as a child, not the information that we populate our brains with. But because we don't have a very strong core of that, I mean, and it seems like you have to kind of learn to first of all, suffering is one thing that I notice a lot of people cannot do. And a lot of things that are worth or of value in your life require you to suffer. And that's
polarity.
You could think
that's polarity, you know, the opposite. You suffer
yeah.
And then you experience the opposite.
Yeah. And it's easy to think about that as suffering as being this really nasty thing. We were just having this conversation the other night where somebody's like, I don't want to die. You know, people start talking about the ways they really wouldn't want to die. I really wouldn't want to be burned alive. I really wouldn't want to drown on a ship, you know, I would, all these different things that like hold our fear. And if we were like timeless, if you're like a timeless soul that emanates after that, then I don't know that those types of suffering wouldn't be there. I don't know. There would be some intrinsic like value to them. That doesn't mean that you need to be like, I've realized that my anxiety, a lot of people deal with it, you know, mental health issues are big. And anxiety for a lot of people is around fear of suffering, fear of pain, fear of these sorts of things. And I know for me, it's mostly about domination, because I want to be able to make my own choices and guide those things. And in a way, I wish that I could have a community to do that with all the time. And I have a family, you know, I have a daughter and I have a wife, and we do that together. But that requires also a lot of, because I come from a society of basically no self-restraint. I mean, we started this talking about pornography, and think pornography could set you completely off your course, you know, for what you might want for your life, or what you want to be able to just do, even if you just want to be able to do things that you can't do now. There are so many distractions out there. There's so many things you could get caught up in. For instance, if you had been younger, before you like went through powerlifting and you went through losing weight and all those things, and then had gone on before, and then after those things, you went on to psychedelics. If you had gone before that, would you have lost control?
Yes.
Right. So you use those tools, and those are the things that come back for you every time. There's no really good diet out there. I mean, sure, there's like shittier ones that I could say, you know, probably are going to load you up with more acute environmental pollutants. You could make those kind of arguments that over time you're going to see, but otherwise, but then at the same time, you're caught in the other part where you can't tell somebody to move less, eat more, or eat less, move more.
Yeah.
You can't tell them that and expect that to be efficacious in any way.
Yeah. Well, you know what? I think you're about to die. I think that's what's happening. So I was literally about to wrap it up, and your phone died. So perfect timing. Steve is no longer with us. He's just this silly picture on my Zoom call. So guys, we've lost Steve. It's a very sad moment for the Psychedelic Athlete podcast. I'll see if there's anything Steve wants to promote. Oh, he's calling me on Messenger. Well, let me get him on this. Yo, so I have you on this, but it is not on. Can you hear me? Oh, oh, we got it. I got sound. Oh, okay. So I wanted to tell you literally right when you, and I'm still recording this, but I'll wrap it up in a sec. I was literally about to stop you on that note when you went frozen. I was about to say, well, Steve's phone's about to die, so let's wrap this up. But since I have you on here, I don't know if they can hear you, so I'll repeat anything you say, because technically I was doing this from my laptop and you called me on the, I don't even know if you're on Messenger or Zoom or what we're talking on. So I want to tell you that I might as well ask you now, because I was going to say I might put anything in the show notes. Is there anything, because I know you are involved in a lot of different things, music related stuff, writing, you have a zine thing coming out. Is there anything people can like keep an eye on, subscribe to, either a website, a page, anything you want to put out there?
I'm the editor at Oak Journal.
Oak Journal. Oakjournal.org.
And then I've written in Fifth Estate, which is a nationally distributed magazine, but not about any of the things we talked about today. So
it doesn't. Yeah. Okay, cool. Well, maybe I could send me a message with any sort of link that you want to go into a show note, and I'm going to wrap this thing up.
Okay. Keep it clean. Yeah, just do it like we're just buds. Yeah, don't put any links in there.
All right, cool. Sounds good. Well, I'm going to wrap this up, and then let me just end the recording right now. So, boom, end the meeting for all.